Hello everyone, my name is Anitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So recently we got a whole bunch of new news over from Japan that's going to be impacting how we're going to be playing the game. And on top of that, we also have a whole lot of new mechanics to go over with the release of Japan's starter deck at 15 and 16, which is going to respectively start off block 3 for Digimon. So first, let's just go into the new rules that's going to be added into the game officially as of April 1st, which is going to be a Mulligan rule. So Mulligans have been more delegated to Ultimate Cup alternative rule sets, but now they're finally making their way into the main game. So as far as the changes to the Mulligan rule, it's not exactly the type of Mulligan that we were playing with. So the new changes to the Mulligan rule is we're going to start off by shuffling our deck and our egg deck, determine who goes first, then we're going to be drawing 5 cards from our deck. Ordinarily, we'd set up our security, then draw the 5 cards for our hand, but instead now we're drawing the 5 cards first before we set up security, so that way we get a look at the cards in our hand and decide if we want to redraw, and we can only do this once. Then if we do redraw, we're going to return all of the cards from our hand back into our deck, shuffle our deck, and then draw 5 new cards. Then after that, we're going to then set up our security and start the game promptly after that. So this is a little bit of a change in terms of how Mulligans used to work in the Ultimate Cup, but I definitely think that Mulligans are going to help the game, creating less bricky hand starts, just because Digimon's design sometimes could lead to non-games if you don't necessarily see specific parts and pieces to be able to start the game. So I think this is going to help with the overall game flow, making it for a more enjoyable experience. And then as far as some of the new stuff that we got over in Japan with the start of Block 3, we do know that starter decks at 15 and 16 are going to be Metal Garurumon and War Greymon based. The Metal Garurumon is going to be a purple deck, and the War Greymon is going to be a black deck. Then on top of that, the current English release date is going to be October 13th, so we should have BT14 be somewhere around that time period as well. Then with the new starter decks, we do have a couple of different mechanics to go over. So the first new mechanic is going to be Blast Evolution. So Blast Evolution is allowing us to be able to digivolve into this card for a low cost, and that cost is 0. Then on top of that, we do have a counter mechanic added into the game. The chiming window is going to be when the opponent attacks with a Digimon, so it's not just you could use counter whenever you want. There is a specific window in which you can counter the opponent. Then on top of that, we have a brand new card type with ace cards, and ace cards will generally be accompanied with the Overflow mechanic. So ace cards aren't necessarily part of the Digimon's name, so as you'll see with an example soon, Metal Garurumon Ace is still going to be considered a Metal Garurumon. But as far as the Overflow mechanic, this is kind of to be paired up with the Blast Evolution mechanic, just because there does need to be some consequence for utilizing Blast Evolution Digimon to be able to digivolve for 0, which is just a huge tempo swing on being able to utilize your cards effectively, especially paired up with the counter mechanic to try to disrupt the opponent. So the drawback is with the Overflow on being able to lose memory when the card basically leaves the battle area, and yes, this does work also with de-digivolve, so if you de-digivolve an Ace Digimon with Overflow, then Overflow will still activate losing memory. Then on top of that, there was a small redesign to the cards in which the cost icon actually does help identify what color the cards are. So if we take a look at an example on what one of these new cards is going to be looking like, I have the starter deck 16 Metal Garurumon Ace. We could see right here that with the cost, it does have that little purple tick, and the other ticks are going to represent the other colors to help with the overall usability and readability of the cards on top of identification. just for extra clarity on what color the card is, which I definitely think is nice, having some good usability features. Then as far as what this card is specifically doing, you can see that the name is still going to be Metal Garurumon with the little ace stamp, and the ace stamp just represents that it's an ace Digimon on top of a small little border change. Then as far as what this card is doing, you're still able to Digivolve it normally if you really wanted to, and it has an extra Digivolution condition to be able to utilize it with your Garurumons, so it does have some extra usability on how you could Digivolve it. Then we see with Metal Garurumon, it does have an ability that triggers from the hand, which is the counter mechanic, to Blast Digivolve to allow us to be able to Digivolve our Digimon into a high-level Digimon relatively efficiently. Then the reward for Digivolving into this card is allowing us to discard up to 3 cards from our hand and gain a memory for each card trashed. So if we use this during the opponent's turn, then we essentially get a gain memory on the opponent's turn, taking away their possible tempo and potentially ending their turn. While this does seem really powerful, as I'll get into later, ace cards have their own sets of pros and cons. Then it has its own when attacking ability, which is just allowing the card to synergize with the deck and the mechanics it's trying to play around with to make it as usable as it possibly can be. Then, as we see with War Greymon Ace from Starter Deck 15, it's following a very similar pattern, where it has all of these alternative ways to be able to Digivolve into the card. It has that hand counter blasted Digivolution ability on top of the disruption that it's offering in the form of blocker, with a nice ability to make it synergize with the deck that it's trying to be played with. And it has the Ace mechanic, which is allowing us to have Overflow 4 on our Digimon, so this does work even when we Digivolve on top of this card. It's still going to retain that Overflow as a kind of the risk reward for utilizing these ace cards. And then when it comes to the counter timing, I know this is going to be a point of contention for a lot of players, but it does have its own level of nuance based on the counter timing rules that we have currently laid out for us. So as far as how counter timing actually works, there's 6 simple steps. So player A is going to declare the attack, then player A is going to activate their when attacking abilities. This is when the new counter timing is able to trigger, and player B is allowed to use their counters when a player A's Digimon attacks. Then player B is able to activate counter once per attack, once the attack is fully resolved, and after you are able to utilize your counter, then that's when player B is allowed to utilize their blockers or some of the abilities that are going to be triggering on the opponent's turn. Then this is when battle is going to commence with the Digimon on player A side attacking the Digimon or security. So I don't necessarily think, based on this counter timing, that it's going to be hyper problematic, and I know a lot of people are going to be screaming, oh, look, it's just counters and hand traps, and I don't necessarily think that's true, just because there is its own level of nuance on how to be able to play around them, just because the player needs to have their Digimon sit on the field, and they need to have the Digimon attack to be able to trigger the counter, allowing you to Digivolve on the opponent's turn with the Ace, Burst Digivolution, and Overflow mechanic. So there is its own level of risk reward to the whole mechanic. But as far as some of the other cards that we got with this type of mechanic, we got Metal Greymon Ace, which just allows you to have the on-play when Digivolution ability to be able to use it, and all it's doing is deleting one of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less. You have Zudomon that has all of those mechanics as well, where it triggers on-play or when Digivolving, you get to trash 2 Digivolution sources from one of the opponent's Digimon, and return one of the opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution sources back to their hand. So it seems like these abilities really want to try to disrupt the opponent's overall game plan. Then we have more examples with Magna Angemon, and we do have another example with Lilymon, where Magna Angemon is allowing us to recover and then DP reduce the opponent's Digimon for the amount of cards that we have in our security stack, and Lilymon is allowing us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down and bounce one of their Digimon to the bottom of the deck if it has 5000 or DP or less. But the thing about these ace cards is that they are really high risk and high reward, and the game isn't necessarily going to be absolutely littered with them. There are going to be a couple of them that are going to be super powerful, sure, and they could utilize and expand these mechanics later, but as of right now, it doesn't necessarily seem like it's going to be that hyper problematic, and it's just an extra level of nuance that we're going to have to learn with the game. So as far as what these ace cards are doing, they seem very high risk, high reward. So the reward for utilizing these cards is, as we've seen with the level 5s, they can hard play for 4, and the level 6s hard play for 6, so they're super cheap cards to be able to use, especially in combination with the burst evolution mechanic, to essentially allow them to digivolve for 0, making it so that they have some high levels of usability. Then, with their low play cost, the level 5s that we've seen do have on-play abilities. The level 6 just have when evolving abilities, but this just allows them, with their cheap costs, to have different levels of usability, making it so that they're highly versatile cards. Then, as far as the reason to why they have the counter ability is to try to disrupt the opponent, having a little bit more interactive gameplay where you have to pay attention to what your opponent's board state is before you think about wanting to advance and how to try to deal with their problems that they're trying to telegraph and set up. But that comes with the risk to utilizing these Ace Digimon, because all of these Ace Digimon so far have the Overflow mechanic, so when that Digimon leaves the field, then it's going to swing the tempo into the opponent's favor, because they're going to be gaining a lot of memory for removing that Digimon, which might not be the hardest thing in the world. Then on top of that, it does have some predictable setups, so that way you could kind of gauge and read what the opponent is trying to do and how they're trying to utilize their cards, creating, again, its own level of nuance on how to play with the mechanic. But I do think that these cards and these changes are going to have an impact on the game for sure, and I don't necessarily know if it's going to be for the better or for the worst. I just think that it's going to make things a little bit more interesting on different ways that we have to be able to approach the game, making it more fun and exciting, not only from a deck building perspective, but from a gameplay perspective, because now you have an extra layer and level of gameplay that you now have to think about. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.